Hi everyone, San on this side and welcome back to your first game series. And in this video, what we are going to do is to work with this pirate, and we won't be using this animated sprite, but we are going to have some advanced animation, and for that we will be using animation player. It's going to be a bit monotonous, but I'll teach you some of the things that you should actually know about this animation player, and using that in the next video, what I'll do is cover the state machine, the blend space, 1D, 2D, and all of that stuff. So it's going to be maybe a short or a long video, I'm not sure yet. And before we get started, I really want your help in one thing, and that is I want to grow this channel because I'm passionate about this game development. I want to pursue a career as a YouTuber. I am really looking for things that can improve this channel. So it would be really appreciated if you could watch a portion of this video, at least 5 minutes, and see what I could actually improve in this. Do tell me. Totally unrelated, I just got this YouTube secrets book by Sean Cannell, and I would see if this actually works, the things that is said here. So let's get started. So what we have till now is this animated sprite 2D, and if I go to the scripts panel and go down, we have this handle animation. So depending on the velocity of y, we are either falling or jumping, and velocity of x, we are running or playing idle. This velocity of y is only selected if it is not on the floor. Otherwise, if it is on the floor, we are on the run and idle. So that is what we've done till now, and I think this was in the very first video of the series, if I remember correctly. And we have this handle direction, and we are calling this here. We have this, and let me just run this and see what we currently have till now. Play this, I can go left, right, and I can jump. Yeah, something like that. And we have made this in our previous videos. So that is good. I'll just close this. And now what I want is to use this animation player. So whenever you want to have some advanced animation, something that you want these animations to merge or blend into each other, you use this animation player. This is very much useful when you have a 3D game, because at that point blending actually makes sense. But let's see what we have for 2D. So I'll click on this plus right here. So click on that, and that would open up this panel, and in this I want to see is animation player. So now you have two of these nodes right here. So first one is the animation player, the second one is the animation tree. You cannot have an animation tree without an animation player, so animation player is very important. One more thing is, you're seeing this is a child of the node and not of the node 2D. So this node is independent of this node 2D or node 3D. So it's not basically linked with a 2D game or a 3D game. It's a common node used for both of them. And what you will see that this animation player is actually extremely powerful, because when you use it in a game, and so what this would do is eliminate a lot of coding that is actually required, and this would handle almost everything. You'll see when we do the state machines in the next video, and that would make the things extremely clear. So let's select this animation player. What you see is we have this animation player selected as a child of this animated sprite, which should not be the case. So I'll select this, make this a child of the pirate. For the moment, what I would do is I'll toggle the visibility of this animated sprite 2D, because we are not going to delete that. And now we have this collision shape. Now the thing is, this animated sprite 2D does not work well with the animation player. So what I would prefer is to use a sprite and not an animated sprite. So click on this plus, just select for a sprite 2D and add that, and I would select this and drag this before the sprite 2D. If you see, there is no toggle visibility on this animation player, and the reason for that is it is not actually visible on the gameplay or on the screen or on the scene at any point of time. And if I click on this animation player, you see you have a lot of options which are totally new, which I do agree. And if I click on this current animation, we don't have anything. Fine for the moment. Let's add some animations, because that is the video all about. So in this sprite 2D, let us add a texture. So if I go here on the bottom left, on the assets, Captain Clown Nose, sprites, Captain Clown Nose again. Now you would have two folders. One is with sword, one is without sword. So let's go with this without sword. Until now, what we've done is used these first four only. And what I would do is take this idle image and drag it all the way to this texture. Now that would bring this pirate, and what I would do is I'll just take this, drag this up so that its feet barely touch this x-axis. So that is good. Now the reason I'm doing this is just to place the sprite 2D at the appropriate position. And now I can just actually remove this texture. So I'll just place on this and that would remove this texture. Now what I want is to add all of these animations in this animation player, which we could later control it either with this animation tree or with the script itself. So let's start. So on the bottom in this animation tab, you would see you have this animation. So click on that and click on new, and that would open this small pop-up, and you need to write a name for this new animation, and I would go with the classic idle animation. Click on OK and you would have this panel. So here what you see are a couple of things. First of all, you have something known as add track. So if you click on that, this would show you what all properties or tracks you could add, and basically what we are going to use is this property track, and later on we would also use this call method track. So using this, you could also call a function from the script at any point of time that you want throughout this animation. Now majorly what we are going to use in this video is this property track itself. So I'll not click on anything yet, and what I'll do is I'll show you some more things. Now if I zoom here, you see this is autoplay on load. We know what it is. We have this looping and we have this onion skin as well. So if you enable onion skinning, you would see the previous frame, the next frames, things like that, the things that you actually do while animating let's say a cartoon, things like that. Okay, so we are not going to disturb anything there. In the middle we have this idle, which is the animation, current animation. If I click here, you would have a list of all the animations till now you've created. We only have one right now, so that won't be an issue. If you click on this animation, you would again get all of these options. So yeah, first of all, what we want is to click on add a track. Since this is the idle animation, we need to add a track. Now what I would do is show you two ways that you could use your sprites to add animations to this animation tree. So let's go with the first one. For that, click on this add track, property track, and that would open this panel. Now in this, you have to select what properties of what node you want to adjust or animate, and what we want is this sprite 2D. Now in this, first of all, we have no texture in this sprite, and that because of that we are going to use this texture. Now the thing is, why we are using this texture is because for different animations we are going to use different textures, and because of that we need to have this texture property as well. In this idle we have this texture, so let me just pull this up, and in this I would also need some more properties which I'm going to add, let's say, later on. Okay, so first of all, let's select a texture. So for this texture I would go into this idle, and you would see an idled stitched image. So what I'll do is I'll take this and drag this all over to this texture, and now you see you have this key, and what you have to do is to keyframe this texture for this particular animation. So you are saying that for this particular animation idle, you want this texture. So what you could do is click on this keyframe, click there, and what that would do is, if you see here, you would see this icon is created, this keyframe is generated. Now if you were not able to see that, rewind 5 to 10 seconds, see that, and you might not always get a keyframe when you click here because there is some issue with Godot, but that is good. So now we have this text, but what you see here is you have all of these 5 animations. We don't want that. What we want is, if you click on this animation, you have some H frames, you have some V frames. So H frames is number of horizontal frames that you have. So horizontally we have 5 frames, 1 2 3 4 and 5. Vertically we only have 1. Now these two are very important because there are different types of sprite frames or sprite sheets. So if you see, we do have individual frames as well. In this one we have a stitched one which I created myself, which has all of these sprites attached in a single frame, because that makes our job very easier. You could also have a sprite sheet that would have all of these animations, like for idle, for run, for jump, and that would be as a part of the single image, and that's where you would actually use this V frames. So for now what I would do is change this H frames to 5, press enter, and that would crop or chop this image. Now I want that to be keyframed. So click there, nothing happened. Click it again, you would see this create new track for property. Click on create, leave this as it is, create, and that would create the edge frames. Now this edge frames is what? 5 in this case. So if I press play, nothing actually happens because you have fixed the texture for this sprite, you have fixed the edge frames, but you have not fixed what animation should be played. Now, before we add the frames, I want you to look here at the bottom panel. We have this snap selected and we have this 0.0333. So what you see here, this 0.033 actually means the amount of distance this slider would travel when you shift it one step to the right. So when I did that, this value changed from 0 to 0.033. If I do it once more, that would take it to 0.0667. And if I do it once more, that would be 0.1. So what you should know about your sprites is that at what frame rate it is actually running. So for our sprite sheet and sprite frames, this is actually running at 10 frames per second, which means every frame should display after 0.1 second. So what we want is this snap to not be this 0.033, you want this to be 0.1 and then press enter. Once you do that, your slider would actually move at 0.1 increments and we are good with that. Now what we want is to actually animate this character. So for that, what you would do is you have to keyframe this frames as well. So if I click on this frames, this will ask me the same pop-up. So I'll click on create and that would add the very first frame. Now what I would do is, or if you have observed, this frame automatically went from 0 to 1. So Godot knows that this is a frame, so you would actually shift it one step to the right. So what you do is click on this again, till the time you reach the number 4. So our animation is exactly 0.5 seconds long. So we need to change the length of the animation, and the way you do that is to change this property. You change this 0.1 or you change this 1 to 0.5 and you just observe what happens to this light gray length. So press enter and that would actually reduce the length. So if I just go back and if I play this manually by dragging, so the last 2 frames 3, 4 and 5 are exactly the same. So if I play this looks weird, right? And let me just enable this looping as well, run. So there is an issue. So let's go to frame number 4. So frame number 0 at 0 seconds we have frame 0, at 0.1 second we have frame 1, 0.2 second we have frame 2, at 0.3 second we have frame 3, 0.4 second we have still frame 3. So we want this to be frame 4 and click on that and yeah, you would have this. So now if I press play, you have this normal idle animation that we made in the animated sprite. Now one thing if you observe is that this is way more complicated than animated sprite, but this actually gets a job done pretty well. So what I can do is just pause this and see all of these frames, right? So what I would do is I would create more animations. So I would have this as it is, and now what I'll do is click on animation, and what I want is to duplicate. Now while duplicating, I want this to be the sword animation. Okay, click on OK, and now you have the sword. Now the only thing that is different here is the texture, because in this idle sword one you still have 5 frames. In this stitched one you have 5 frames horizontally, 1 V frame vertically, and the difference between idle sword and the idle is just the texture. So for that I'll click on this keyframe of this texture, and that would open this small options of value and easing, and I'll just drag this new idle sword stitched, place it there, and if I just press play, you would now have the sword character. So Control S to save, and that is good. We are done with 2 of the animation. So if I click here, we have idle and idle sword. Now let's do this with the running animation, but we are trying to use these frames and not the texture, edge frames and frame. So let me click on animation and click on new. I would name this to run. Okay, so once we are done with that, we need to add track, property track, and sprite 2D. And in this, we just need to manipulate the texture because we just have a single image. So click there, and again, how many frames do we have? We have 6 frames. Snap is 0.1. So the length is 0.6 seconds. I want this to be looping because this is a running animation, and what I could do is I could add the textures obviously. So if I click on this sprite 2D, that would open this texture, and what I could do is click on this run one. I could just, first of all, I could keyframe this, click on this keyframe and take this run one, place it there. Okay, I could shift one space to the right, and I could just click on this sprite 2D, keyframe that. I'll just first add all of these keyframes. Basically we need how many? We need 6 keyframes, right? Finally the 6th one, we have 6 keyframes if you see here. Now for everyone I would manually add the textures. So for this first one I would change this to this one. Oh sorry, the second one. For this third one I would change this to third one. Again, fourth one I'll change this to fourth one. Fifth one I'll change this to fifth one. For the sixth one I'll just change this to sixth one. So if I just press play, I'm not seeing anything. Why? So let's click on this sprite 2D, and what is the issue? So the issue is with this edge frames. So what is happening is when we are changing this animation from idle to run, in the idle we have edge frames as 5, but here we need edge frames as 1 itself, right? So if I press play, now you actually see the running animation. See, that is good. Now what I would suggest you to do is to use the animations uniformly. With that I mean have the similar property tracks in this for every animation. So what I'll do is I'll just take this animation and I'll just remove this. I'll click on OK, and what is this? This is the reset animation, right? So click on this, I'll go with the idle one, and I'll just duplicate this, make this as running. Okay, and for the texture, click on this texture and run stitch, just place it there, and that would technically do most of your job. Now again, you're seeing some issue. What is that issue? The issue is with the edge frames, because you have edge frames in the idle already set as the value 5, but in this you want this to be 6 because we've just copied the idle animation, right? So once you do that, this would improve a bit, but you see there is some issue, and the reason for that is the length of the animation is not 0.5 but it is 0.6. Once you do that, you have one more frame that you could add, and at that point the sprite 2D, what I would like to do is to update the frame number to 5 and keyframe that. So now if I run, we have this running animation running properly. Now technically the video is done in a way, and the next part of this video would actually be a bit monotonous because I will be doing this for every other animation that you're seeing here. Like we have 20 animations, right? I think we are going to do almost all of that. So I've showed you one, and your job is to do this for the remaining animations. But if you just want to follow along, you're good to go. What I would do is I would go on speaking. I would make the whole video. You can skip any part that you want. If you have any issues, you can just follow along. So I'll pause this and we're good to go. Next, for this animation, I'll just duplicate this and I would rename this as run sword. Click on OK, and I'll click on this directory run sword, and for this texture I'll just drag and drop this one, and now if I press play, we have this running with the sword. Everything that you're seeing here, we are going to actually make that a part of the game in the next video, so stay tuned. So I'll pause this, I'll save the scene. Every point of time, just save this. Sometimes, rarely, but sometimes Godot does crash, so for that just save it. Okay, next we have jump. We have jump sword as well. We have fall sword, we have ground sword. So let's create a new animation, new, and this should be what? This should be the jump animation. Click on OK, and rather than doing that, I'll just remove this, and rather than creating a new animation, I'll just click on this idle and I'll just duplicate that. So I'll rename this to jump. Okay, so for this jump, what we need is a texture. So jump, click on this texture, select this jump stitched, place it there, and we are good to go. We have 3 frames, so this would be 0.3 seconds in length, and jump should not be looping. So click on this again. You have to click on this 2 times so that you don't select any of the options. And for the H frames, you would change this value to 3. Okay, and for the animation that you see, it is running fine. Now the remaining animations are automatically okay. So for the last one, I'll delete that frame. For this one, I would also delete this, and now this is working fine. So you could actually select this one and actually delete a part of the frame, delete frames that do not exist. So I'll click on this Control S to save, and again, animation, duplicate. I know this is getting monotonous. I don't myself want to make you bored, but this is what is involved in game development. So texture, just change this to jump sword stitched, place it there, and just, yeah, that is good. Control S to save. Now I'll go back to this idle and I'll duplicate this, and what we want this to be, the fall one. Fall. Okay, so the jump is not looping, right? Let me just check that. Yep, jump is not looping. So let me go to this fall. In this fall, how many images do we have? Oh, we only have 1. So we need this one, right? This one. So let me go to texture, select this one, paste it there. For this H frames, we need this value to be 1 exactly, and the length of this animation should be 0.1, and looping is fine. Or let me just remove this looping. Okay, so what I could do is actually delete the remaining frames that is not required. What I could do is I could just run this, or let's just loop this. Okay, so this is good. Pause this, Control S to save. Animation, duplicate, fall sword. Okay, and in this one, click on texture, and let me just find this fall sword stitched, or this fall sword 1. Just place this one right there, and if I press play, this is good. Control S to save. And if I click on this, we have how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8 animations we are done with. Okay, I can just minimize that. And what do we have more? We have ground and hit. We have ground sword, we have head sword. Good. So we have 2 animations in the ground sword. So let me go to this idle, animation, duplicate, and we are going to do this ground. Click on OK. And for the texture, what I want is this ground texture of 0 ground stitched. So texture, select this, place it there. For the H frames, we only need this to be 2. Press enter, and I can just delete the remaining frames, so, and change the time to 0.2. Press enter, and this should not be looping. This animation is not looping, so if it's just a squeeze of this player. So we did the fall sword, fall, and the ground one, right? Now you know the drill. Duplicate this, and this would be ground sword. Click on OK, click on texture, and the ground sword stitched. So yep, you see that, the squeeze, that is good. We are done with this ground sword as well. Hit sword, we have 4 frames, right? And for the hit as well, we have 4 frames. So where it is, idle and animation, duplicate, and what we want is this hit. Okay, H frames is what, 4 in this case. Texture is what, hit stitched, and I can just delete the last frame and change the length to 0.4, and this should not be looping. Control S to save. If I run this, you see the head animation. Okay, what the next thing is, click on this animation, duplicate, hit sword, and yep, just change this texture to this hit sword. So if I press play, you see you have this hit sword animation. Okay, we have all of these animations. Now the sense of all of these animation would fall into place when you see the next video. So I'm sorry you have to watch this for a long time, but this is what it is. So hit. Okay, so dead hit, we have a dead hit. And do we have a dead hit in this sword one? No, we don't. So that means whenever our character is dying, we would drop our sword. So that means we need to have a scene for a sword as well. Okay, so let's make that in the next video. This video is totally about the animation player, setting up the animation player. So that is good. We have attack 1, 2, 3, air attack 1, air attack 2, and throw sword. So what we have here is dead hit and dead ground. So let's do with dead hit first. So animation, or so we have 4, right? And this is hit sword, and this also has how many H frames? 4. So let me just duplicate this itself, and this would be dead hit. So this would be dead hit. Click on OK. So I just need to change the texture, and let me have a sip of. Okay, that is good. Let me just change this texture and let us play. Okay, that is fine. We might change the position of this, or maybe we would love to drag it a bit down, but this is fine for the moment. Later on we would add a new property of this position as well, so it's all fine. Okay, so for this dead ground we have this again 4. So what I could do is just duplicate this and rename this to dead ground. Okay, click on this texture and just drop this stitched one. So you see how having a stitched frame is actually beneficial or reducing a task. Okay, that's the thing. So once you have the dead hit, you then switch to dead ground. So first you would play this dead, where is this dead hit, like that, and then you would actually fall down. That's good. So we don't have to, I think, change the position of that. Okay, so we're done with dead ground, dead hit, and we are done with all of these 8 animations. So I'll close this. What we are left with is attacks. Attack 1, 2, 3, air attack 1, 2, and this throw sword. So we have, right, a lot of them now. So let's start with air attack 1. We have 3, air attack 2, we have 3, air attack 3, we have 3. So let me find, what do we say? Let me find the animation which only has 3 of them. So that was, I think, the jump one. Jump only has 3 frames, right? So let me just duplicate this and rename this to attack _1. Okay, so on this texture I'll take this attack 1, attack stitched, drop it there. So I'll press play, that is good, and I'll just duplicate this to attack 2, or automatically selected. Okay, texture, select this attack 2 stitched, place it there, that is good. Just play this. Okay, and finally let me just duplicate this again. Okay, change this texture to attack 3 stitched, play this, that is good. So we have attack 1, which is this one, we have attack 2, which is this one, we have attack 3, which is this one. Okay, we are good. Close that. Air attack again, same. So animation, duplicate this, and this would be air attack 1. Click on OK, and for the texture I'll just select this air attack stitched, place it there. So you see this one. Okay, that's good. And let me just duplicate this to air attack 2. Okay, and for this texture I'll take this air attack 2 texture and just drop it there. So that is good. Control S to save, and what we are left is with this throw sword animation. So again, we have 3 1, so we have only 3. So I'll click on animation, duplicate, and this would be throw sword. Click on OK, and for this texture what I'll do is, again, select this one, staged one, place it there, and if I run this, so see, it has the sword, it throws the sword. Now in this one what we would actually do is add a property tag, and or not a property tag but a function. We would actually call a function which is the call method tag, and what that would do is actually keep track of this, if it has the sword or not. So this would go something like this. There would be a variable which is something like has sword, which would keep track if the player is holding the sword or not, because we can pick up the sword, we can drop the sword. So if the player has a sword, the value would be true. If it does not, it would be false. Later on, when we actually call this throw sword, we would call a function, and what that would do is change the value of that has swapped to false. So we would do that later on, but for now we are good. And let me check, we do have the 20 animations, right? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20. Okay, we have 20 animations, and you can just save this. And what I would do is I'll just minimize all of these file structures, and I would just play this level, and this would not show anything. And the reason for that is simple. First of all, we are not controlling any of the animation using the animation player. This animation player is just storing all of these animations. Next, this sprite 2D, the reset track, if you see, we just have a single image, this one, and that is what is displayed on the screen. We are not manipulating this sprite and this animated sprite is invisible. So if I select this and deselect this, Control S to save, if I run the scene, you would have the normal functioning that we had till now. Okay, so that is good. Okay, so I will just close this, and what I'll do is I'll toggle the visibility of sprite and toggle the visibility of this animated sprite. I would press Control S to save, and now let me just brief you over what we are going to do next, and I'll just close this as well. Now what you see here is we are controlling the animation using this handle animation, and using this just for doing this run, idle, jump and fall, we had to write so many lines of code. How many? 28 to 38, close to. This is 11 lines. So just for having these 4 animations and to have the logic when to play what animations, we were devastated to do all of this. Let's say you have 20 animations. Now how do you keep track of that? And that is where the state machine concept comes into the picture, or the finite state machine, which is a very interesting topic in computer science and in theory of computation. And when you read about finite state machines, you would eventually lead on to what Alan Turing discovered, which is the Turing machines. So we are going to technically remove this handle animation, and we are going to remove this as well, because we are not going to use this animated sprite 2D in this anymore. We are going to use this sprite 2D. So what I'll do is just delete this part, animated sprite, this one, and everything that is related with this code is going to be completed in the next video, because for the state machines we do need to have some code associated with that. So that was the video. Hope you enjoyed this, and make sure to just tell me what all I could do to improve this YouTube channel. Again, I would actually try to implement things from this, but yep, I would really love your input. Okay, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. So bye.